Hello everybody, we are here today to bring you what I expect to be the greatest piece of content that I've ever recorded.
Oh, absolutely.
Today, we are doing the car washing vlog. No, wait, we're talking about Steel Ball Run. Shit! Okay.
Oh, man.
So yeah, this is going to be the start of a new series on the channel. As you know, we talked about volumes of Nisekoi. The first two weren't too good, right?
Yeah.
But after that, we really stepped up our game and really talked about all the important plot beats and stuff going on in with the series, right? And of course, I read Nisekoi because I made a deal with Jaden to read Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run.
Yes.
And that is what we're here today. So, with the Nisekoi reviews and almost everything else on this channel, I talk, right? I run through everything. Here's the thing. I've read about 30 chapters of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run before we decided to do this method with this series too. So since Jaden has read the entire series and he counts it as his favorite series of all time, or at least this part, he will be the one doing all of the talking.
All right.
Right? So with that, you're going to hear Jaden's voice the entire time. So whenever he messes up, it's his fault, not mine. You got that?
Awesome.
I'm glad we're all good on that. So, again, I have not read much of Steel Ball Run. So far, I'm not really a big fan of it, but we'll get into all of this later. Today, we are covering the first 2 volumes of the original run.
Yeah.
Because this series has been released in a few different ways. It was released originally compiling 96 chapters into 24 volumes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right. And then a new, 16 volume run?
Yeah, 16 volume. There's a box set.
A box set that, excuse me, there it has 6 chapters per volume, right? These volumes right here are a little weird. The originals have a lot more chapters than they should, because you normally have 4 chapters, and it gets there later, but it's just really weird here to start. So today we are covering the first 2 volumes of Steel Ball Run, which goes up to chapter 11, and then I was personally reading on Manga Deck, since this is really only place you can, being the series hasn't been officially translated yet by Viz.
And it probably won't for at least, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's going to be a little while, right? So we're reading off of here. I don't remember the translation's name that we're reading, but you can just find it on there real easy and real simple, right?
I read the JoJo's Colored Adventure scans, which are typeset by the JoJo's Colored Adventure people.
See, and that's another thing. I have not read colored. I read black and white.
Yep, I'm reading colored because it's made by the official publishing company, and I think it only helps Araki's art look even better.
And I personally I'm not really a fan of that thing, so...
That's fine.
I don't.
So, I think to preface this, we need to start talking about what JoJo's is, because this is part 7.
Yes, it is. I have not read any other part of JoJo's. I'm just sort of hopping in. Whenever we first talked about reading this series, Jaden said that there were 3 things I need to know. A test for me, right? Yep. And he said if you get these right, you don't have to read the other parts. If you don't, you've got to read all of them, right? What were your 3 questions?
It was...
Because this was a long time ago. I don't know if you remember them all.
Who was the main villain of part 3?
I knew that. That is Dio.
What does his stand do?
No, it shouldn't be what is his stand.
What is his stand's name?
I think it's called The World.
And then what does it do?
It stops time.
Yeah, alright.
Right, and here's the thing. I've never read any of these. There's another manga podcast out there called Weekly Manga Recap. It's great. The 2 guys on there really know what they're always talking about and are great entertainers in what they do. They have done a bunch of episodes on JoJo's form, being that one of them has not read them and the other one has, sort of like me and you, right? But I've sort of gotten it from there, and also just being around all of the guys I'm around, because like Caleb back here, since he is sitting in here again.
Yep.
I sort of figured out a bunch about JoJo's, and I've sort of been spoiled on this entire series in a way, right? Just by being in a Discord server.
Yeah.
So, yeah, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is what? At this point, 8 parts.
8 parts
right?
long, yeah.
This is the 7th part of the series.
Yes.
Being that if you were reading or watching this, you've probably experienced the rest of the parts. I think we're going to spoil a bunch of the previous series here, right? Yeah. So isn't in part 6 there's like a time reset or something?
So basically, what happened was in part 6, the main universe ended. A stand user, that's the abilities, are called stands, which I'm pretty sure you know that if you're watching the JoJo review. But the entire world basically got reset and created a new world, and basically this takes place in that new world. So it's basically like a renaissance. It is a new thing. And also Araki, the creator, Hirohito Araki, He was just tired of the current world that he had, and he had built it too far, so he just wanted to reset the clock and start over.
And I think is that really everything?
I mean, that's all you have to know for this. Now,
because this series isn't really influenced by anything from what I can tell. It is we'll get into the concept here in a second, but it is literally a horse race across America.
Yep.
Right? So now, I really think we should just start, unless you got anything else to say.
Another thing to add is these characters in this story are kind of like reincarnations from the last one. So, like, Johnny is Jonathan Joestar from Part 1. Gyro Zeppeli is Caesar Zeppeli from Part 2. I have a theory that Steven Steele is a reincarnation of Foo Fighters that we'll get to later.
See, I don't even know really what any of this is, but...
Diego is a rehash of Dio. Basically, he's just reusing the ideas in a new setting.
Yeah.
It's like an alternate timeline, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of like Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Yeah, and, okay, so... I think we should start this off. Like I said, Jaden has all of the really big notes, and I just have, like, an outline. Some of these things I'll talk about as we come up, and others I won't. But I say we get started, Jaden.
All right, so this story takes place in 1890 in the Wild West, short after the Civil War and the age of cowboys, basically.
I love the setting of this series.
And the Transcontinental Railroad had just been built. Yeah, it's really cool seeing, like, an old Western anime or manga, because I've never seen any before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very interesting.
All right. So, the very first shot we get is a Native American man running by and getting shot down. That's the opening scene. And we find out that his name is Sandman. And he stumbles across these ball marks in the walls. Now, I'm paraphrasing a lot here, by the way. And there's just these like sphere marks where somebody's hit with a ball over and over.
Yeah, because let me say something else. This is a monthly series.
Yes.
Right? What we are talking about today, which is about 12 chapters, this is a year, one whole year,
this is the whole year
of
story.
publication.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, what we get here is important and big, but it's a year of publication. Right? So, just keep going.
Yep. So, by the way, as we talk about these characters' names, I am going to reference what song or reference they're listening to. Sandman is Enter Sandman by Metallica.
That makes sense, and also sort of makes sense he's a Native American who runs on the sand as we get more into.
Yep. And so he decides that he wants to run in the Steel Ball Run. He finds an advertisement for it. And he wants to run for his tribe, for his people.
Because isn't the whole thing that he wants to buy their land back because the white man is stealing it from him?
So, you know.
Something I gotta admit, like, why does this start off with Sandman?
I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, I understand, but... And he's got, like, prominence here in these chapters, but it's like, why start with him?
It is a strange start, because most JoJo parts do start with the main character.
And we'll get to him later, of course, Johnny, but... It's just very interesting that why Sandman is this token character that we're seeing here.
Now, I will say, I do like how JoJo, this part especially, has a lot of diversity. There's a lot of different characters. And,
oh, yeah.
You know, which isn't something very commonly seen in anime or manga.
And also, it does make sense, basically, this is in the 1980s.
1890s.
1890s,
yeah.
Whatever. 1980s, jeez. Oh, that's hot during segregation. Oops. Right? But, like, we've got Poco Loco here later, who is a, black slave who is formed, like, we'll get into it.
Yeah. So, next we cut to Steven Steele announcing this giant race that he is hosting for $500 million. Now, that's not $500 million in that time, it's $500 million today.
Yeah, I saw there was like a volume extra where it really mentioned that, like, because this series is written in Japan, everything's in meters, right? Because, like, the first leg of this race is 1,500 meters, right? Not feet or yards or miles, like we would say. It's a very interesting choice, like, but even so, that's a lot of money. Anybody can tell you that, no matter from what time period you're from.
So there are hundreds, possibly even thousands of runners that you can see are getting ready, and they're being interviewed. And it's going to be a race across the entire country. And they're being...
West Coast to East Coast.
Yep. They're being sponsored by the Speedwagon Oil Company, which is actually a reference to Part 1. So I just thought that was a cool tidbit.
Speedwagon. I feel like I've heard of that before from you guys.
So something that that Steven Steele says is that this race is unpredictable. Nobody knows what's going to happen. It's such a large-scale thing, it's nearly impossible to predict how it'll go.
Because it is literally from the West Coast, like, San Francisco?
Yeah, San Francisco all the way to New York.
To New York, right? That's all across the country, right?
That's crazy.
I mean, and from what they say in here in, like, the world building we get, this has never been attempted before, right? So it's something really new for everybody.
Yeah. And it's all being sponsored, and it's all being recorded and photographed and whatnot. And he announces some of the rules for the race. And then we get some shots of some main characters that'll be coming up. We got Mountain Tim. We got Avdol, which is a reincarnation of Avdol from Part 3. Diego Brando, who becomes a very important antagonist. Not necessarily a villain, but he does oppose the main characters.
I mean, yeah, even in these volumes, he's a big antagonistic force here coming on later in the race.
And then we get a guy walking up to sign up for the race, and he signs his name, Gyro Zeppeli, the best character.
I have to say something about this first chapter. They do ask Steven Steele at one point, like, hey, so with this race, anything goes, right? Does that count as weapons and guns? And I love how he just says, Second Amendment, man.
Yeah, he says we can't infringe the Second Amendment.
Yeah, and I just find it a little funny. Yes, this is 1890s America.
Yeah, and
right?
I mean, you have to have. I mean, it's kind of obvious.
You've got to have defense. Yeah,
you got to have some kind of weapon when you're dealing out in the wild.
And I also love how Steven Spielberg says the real failure of this race isn't going to be everybody losing out early, right, or somebody not making it to the end. It is losing the American spirit.
Yep.
Right, which is an American. I like that.
Yeah, but after he signs his name, we get the money shot of him looking down, and it shows his whole drippy outfit, with the cowboy hat with the slits cut in it, which that's actually important for later.
That's a cowboy hat?
It's a cowboy hat.
I literally thought that was his hairdo. Was just that eggshell pattern on his head.
That's a cowboy hat with slits cut in it. He has long blonde hair, but that's a hat.
Really? He's not. I thought he was bald, except for this eggshell hair pattern he's got on his head.
Dude, he's a cowboy. He's gonna have a cowboy hat.
Wow, I didn't even realize that. Wow, I'm gonna have to look back now. That's really interesting.
Okay, and then he smiles and we get his gold grills that say "Go Go Zeppeli."
Yes, this is Gyro, not Steven Spiel. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he goes to pay for his entry fee, which is $1,200, and the woman says that he's $20 short. He looks over and he sees this guy trying to take his money, and he touches him and somehow spins him onto the ground and flips him over, basically.
Yeah,
and that's
because he's got this steel ball in his pocket.
Yep. And he drops the coins, and that's where chapter 1 ends.
Yep. Well, let's get into chapter 2.
Well, first of all, I think chapter 1's not an amazing introduction.
I think it is. The Sandman thing's interesting at the beginning, but really, I think this is supposed to be about the beginning of the race.
Yeah, it sets up the story.
It sets up the story and the tone.
Because I think Steel Ball Run has the most, the setting is the most important in Part 7. You could strip away the setting of some of the other parts and it wouldn't matter too much, but you gotta have the race for it to count. Alright, chapter 2, we open up on Poco Loco, who's named after a Spanish jazz song. Oh, by the way, Gyro Zeppeli is named after Led Zeppelin.
I can't clap since I'm holding the microphone, but
All right.
Golf clap deal?
Yep. So we find Poco Loco, and he's down on his luck. He's broke, and his family used to be former slaves, and they'd just been freed. And this guy's lazy. He doesn't do anything. And his parents like, you lazy little bastard, you need to get to work. And let's see what I have here. So while that happens, it cuts back to a standoff between
Gyro
and this guy.
And this pickpocket.
Yeah,
dude.
this pickpocket. And it's a very classic Western duel type look. And we actually get our first shot of Johnny, where he's sitting in a wheelchair in the very off distance with a very terribly drawn picture.
He is.
I have that
Does
on my
this
notes.
mean that because I drew a picture here later on, does that mean I've got to get a picture of your pictures, find a picture in a chapter? Jaden, you're making me do too much work in editing these.
Whatever. But anyways, they stand off, and Gyro throws his ball at the guy, and it starts spinning his arm in a very strange manner.
And it spins and it turns the gun back on him.
Yeah, and Gyro says, drop the gun. No, I won't.
And it just
He shoots himself
in the face.
And the sheriff comes over and he's like, hey, stop this. And they're like, he did nothing wrong, he killed himself. It was a duel.
It was a fair duel, yeah, which I find is interesting, but also this is the 1890s.
Yep.
Right, duels are a big thing.
And we see Johnny, and he rolls up, and hey, this even has disabled representation, man. It's got everything. But
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it shows Gyro, and and Johnny walks up to him and sees his balls. And
Christ, Jaden, why?
Later in the story, it's going to be in more ways than one, but we'll get to that.
Jeez.
So he touches the steel ball, and suddenly he starts to stand up. And obviously he's in a wheelchair, so I mean, this is a big feat for him. And he stands up, and he's shocked, right? And it cuts to him talking to himself and saying, "This is the story. This story is a tale of me starting to walk."
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool narration in the chapter. It's like, hey, this is my tale of learning to walk in more than ways than one.
Now, I want you to remember that line for when we do the last review. All right, chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Okay, so this shows Johnny's backstory. Johnny loved horse racing. He was a prodigy, basically. His father loved that he horse raced. He competed in multiple tournaments. He won the Kentucky Derby at 16. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, Johnny was a really successful kid.
But
then he got a big ass ego.
He was a cocky ass. That was literally what I had right here. And so he gets all the girls. He goes with this girl to the movie theater, and he's the shit, man. You know, he's gonna try and cut through this movie theater to see this movie, and then he gets shot.
Yeah, he just gets shot by the guy in the beginning of the line because he's the guy in the game's line. He's like, I've been here for a long time. You're not stealing my spot.
Yeah, so he wakes up, finds out that he's been paralyzed from the waist down, basically. And,
he just gets treated like shit.
Yeah.
I mean, his life is over. He was a cocky bastard. He used his cockiness so much that it looped around and stabbed him in his balls.
I mean, he's a depressed guy. Johnny's very depressed throughout the beginning of the story. But, anyways, after that,
I think his backstory is very enjoyable for him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it sets up this character. Like, he was really good at horse racing. What's his competition? Horse racing! Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Right?
I think that Johnny has probably the best character development of any JoJo character, besides maybe Josuke from Part 8. But we might get into that if we do JoJo, probably not. Anyways, after that we cut back to Gyro, and he says, "Dude, you will die if you try to race." Because Johnny's like, "I want to go with you."
Because he wants to learn the secret behind
the spin.
These steel balls and this spin.
Yeah,
right.
And Johnny actually figures out pretty quickly, hey, he's something that has to do with the spinning is what's causing that.
Yeah, it's something like whenever Gyro throws these balls, like people's like arms or whatever spin in this weird pattern, and like it makes their body parts spin in a way, right? And whenever Johnny just touched it with a finger, it made him spin himself, right?
Yeah.
And to stand up, which is very interesting, right? So Johnny is a smart dude.
And so Johnny's determined. He wants to get in this race, and he honestly kind of looks up to Gyro. He sees him as this powerful figure and wants to learn from him. But Gyro thinks that this is just some schmuck that's not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Because his time's over. I mean, he ain't going to race anymore.
Yeah. I mean, he's paralyzed from the waist down.
And that's where chapter 3 ends.
Yeah.
So chapter 4.
We open up with Gyro choosing what to bring to the race. And he's got all these materials around him, right?
I noticed something. He packs a teddy bear, which didn't exist for another 10 years. Because teddy bears came around with Teddy Roosevelt. So, a little bit of a historical inaccuracy there, guys.
Jaden, I think we gotta end it here. I don't like historical misrepresentation. So, if only this series had, like, the President of the United States in it, maybe I'd keep reading it.
Yep, sure. Alright, so, they see Johnny's being dragged around by a horse. He's been trying for days to get on, because there's a few days leading up to the race, and everybody's starting to gather around. There's thousands of racers, and Johnny's just being dragged around by this horse, and people are like, this thing's gonna die, he's gonna kill himself.
Okay, I feel like I need to back up here. What Johnny did is Johnny wants to get in this horse race, so what he did was he bought this old, like...
Oh, yeah.
This older horse from a guy, and pretty much the horse was a bad deal in a way for him, right? And he's just being dragged around by this horse because, I mean, he wants to go in this race and he needs to follow Gyro to figure out this spin. Right? That's the whole thing here. I mean, it's a very endearing moment where Johnny is just being dragged around by this horse and is trying to get on.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
right?
it's pretty miserable for him. And Gyro doubts he's going to ever get on. But Then we get cut to that Sandman is going to be running in the race.
Yeah.
We see him.
And he is running.
Yeah, he is literally going to run because his whole spiel is that he can run with his bare feet ridiculously fast. He can outrun horses.
There's something later we'll talk about his like running movement.
Yeah.
Right? But Sandman's whole thing is that he doesn't need a race. His horse is himself.
Yep.
He's a horse.
So everybody's beginning to line up at this point, and the race is just a few minutes from starting. And Gyro tells Johnny, if you have the will to get on, then get on. And Johnny's able to do it. He kind of spins himself onto his horse.
Which I think is really cool.
That's his first use of spin, I think.
A spin?
Yeah.
I think it's just really cool, like the thing of like, all right, I'm going to get the horse to go down here, and then I'm going to sort of like spin my way, make the horse right its head, and spin me onto the top of it. Really cool idea. It's really cool for a guy who is disabled from the waist down.
Yeah, that's one thing I think JoJo's is really good at doing, is having such weird creative solutions to things.
Yes, and this was definitely really cool.
And you'll see that later. All right, so the last chapter of volume 1, chapter 5.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6? I thought
you messed up somewhere.
Oh well.
Because chapter 5 was the one where Johnny gets to spin. So.
Chapter 5 was the one where he gets on the horse. No,
Yeah,
No, chapter 4 is where he gets on the horse. Chapter 5 is where this race starts.
No, chapter 6 is where the race starts.
There's no way. You gotta be wrong.
What do you mean?
There's no way.
Yes, it is.
Whatever. Here's what I got for chapter 5.
Yeah, okay, let's just go in chronological order now.
All right. So the race starts, and they're for the winner of the first stage, which is 15,000 meters to a nearby church.
Yeah, and it's set up that there's 9 legs to this race, right? There's 9 different stages to it, right? And this first stage is obviously the shortest. It's just to see who can get from point A to point B. It says 1,500 meters. Just go at it, right?
So there's a $10,000 and a 1-hour bonus for the first place winner of that one. And the way it works is that however you place in each checkpoint, you get points, and the person with the most points at the end will win.
Yes, I really love this idea of the hour time extension. That just seems like it'll come in a hell lot later.
Yep, you'll see. All right, so let's see what I got here. So it starts out with Gyro just straight taking off leading.
Yeah, he's got the lead 100%, right?
And Johnny is actually to be able to catch up.
Yeah, because Johnny has gotten on his horse, being that he knows how to ride horses.
Oh yeah.
He's getting it to go where he wants.
Yeah, and then at that point, Abdul, which is this Egyptian man on a literal camel.
Yes, a camel.
Starts riding in, and he's bashing people because the weight of the camel, he can knock people off course. They're being very aggressive at this first stage. And then Gyro does something pretty cool. He's able to use the spin of his steel balls to create like an after effect of the terrain.
Like a mirage in a way.
Yeah. And shift it in order to have Abdul like fall over, and then he dies.
He literally dies?
He straight up dies. He's dead. He gets trampled.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure he does. If he doesn't, I know he does later. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, Spin can basically do whatever. That's kind of how Araki writes his stories, which I guess you can see as a pitfall. There's no real limit to the power systems at times. They kind of just can do whatever they need to at the moment. But, you know. And that's basically where chapter 5 ends. That's all I have for that. Basically, these chapters, I'm paraphrasing a lot. These opening 2 volumes is a lot of just racing. It's just back and forth mind games.
From here on, it's just like horse racing.
It's just mind games of back and forth. So, that's what I have for this first volume. And you say it goes to chapter 6.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. We're talking about 2 volumes anyway.
All right.
As long as we get to chapter 11, we're fine.
Okay. What do you think about this so far? From the story that's been told so far?
I think we need to keep going, and I'll get my thoughts later.
Okay. Are we doing Go on Time?
What?
You doing Go on Time?
Jaden, I don't know. Just keep reading.
All right.
Just keep reading your notes, man.
So,
I like where chapter 6 opens up.
Yeah. Chapter 6, it starts out with Diego, and he's basically a genius, isn't he? That's how it starts?
Oh, never mind. Okay, where does your chapter 6 start?
What does it start for you?
No, just talk about what you're talking about.
All right, so Diego's basically a horse racing genius. He knows what he's doing. He can like basically predict the breathing of horses.
Yeah.
And use it to his advantage.
Yeah, it's this like weird pattern of like every time his horse takes 8 breaths, right? His horse leans to the left and he can get a speed bonus. It's like backdrafting in Mario Kart.
Yeah, but Gyro is able to catch up to Diego by spinning his balls into his horse, and it allows it to like tense up the muscles a lot to move faster.
Sure.
So, after that, it cuts to realizing that Poco Loco was given a fortune by this old woman, who's actually the same old woman from Part 3, Baba Yaga. That's literally her name. And he actually wakes up late for the race.
Yeah, like he was already there and ready, but he waked up late, so...
But this old lady told him that he would have any luck that he desired. And for the next, 3 months, anything that he wanted to achieve, he would.
Yeah.
And so he wants to win the race.
And he gets insane luck and catches up.
And that's basically the entire chapter. I mean, this chapter is pretty short. I mean, again, it's just a lot of back and forth.
I mean, this whole stuff with Diego and Gyro, that's 30 pages.
Yeah, it is.
Right? It's a bunch of horse racing stuff. It's fine. It's whatever.
I mean, I think it's really cool. It's something I've never seen in anime before. But, I mean,
So, are we going to have... Because I know the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fighting game just came out.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure horse cart?
I have no idea. But I do know when you play the Steel Ball Run characters, they fight on their horse.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, you kind of have to with Johnny because he can't move around otherwise.
Well, he's got a wheelchair.
Yeah, okay. So, chapter 7, we realize that Poco Loco is super lucky. He can basically just do these ridiculous moves that would almost never be plausible because he just can.
He's just got the luck on his side.
Yeah.
Right. I really liked it whenever Poco Loco's trying to catch up, he passes the automobile.
Yeah.
Right, because pretty much from Europe, an automobile came over and tried to help this race, right? Show what the motor can do, right? It's just in dead last. They're talking about how many gallons of fuel it's going to take to get across the continent.
Yep.
It's interesting enough.
Besides that, we realize that Sandman's able to take a bunch of shortcuts because he can cut through where a horse can't go.
Yeah.
And Gyro decides to take a shortcut as well through these woods, and it's a very risky move.
Yeah, it is.
It could easily set back his placing.
But it also gets him 100 meters that he doesn't have to run.
Yeah, and it also it splits the groups. So half the people go through the woods, half the people take the easy route.
Yeah, something I like about Poco Loco's luck here, it's really interesting, how he just oh no, the horses spit dirt in my mouth. Oh, there's a coin, right? And then, oh, man, this girl got mud on her. Oh, look at that. Her clothes are falling off.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's oh man, this guy got mud on his face. Oh my gosh, it looks like this guy on a wanted poster over here. It's a very way to show Poco Loco's work.
Yep.
Or luck.
And so so chapter 8, these split paths, Poco Loco actually hits his head on a branch and falls off.
Nope. Poco, so we should talk about who went in what part of it, right? Into the forest, Poco Loco and Johnny follow Gyro.
Yeah.
Right? Does Diego follow?
I'm pretty sure he does.
I think because he's also part of the big race at the end, right? But they all just go through the forest, and Poco Loco has got this stupid luck that helps him get through, pretty much.
Yeah. And so after that, he actually gets hit by a branch and falls off, and people are like, hey, his luck finally ran out. Turns out that he got knocked off so the horse could run through the branches where a rider couldn't go, and basically dragged Poco Loco with him. He got back on.
It's a very interesting thing, I mean.
And Gyro is able to throw his balls to rotate the trees and spin them away so he can move through.
And then it spins them back and closes them, blocking off the rest of our characters.
That's a good amount of what spin can do. It can rotate objects in the ways that Gyro wants to
manipulate. So is spin his stand?
No. It is a power system. Okay.
I take it this will get explained later.
So in part 1...
Jaden, will this get explained later?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about it then.
Okay, but hold on. In part 1, there's this power system called Hamon, and it's using sunlight energy it does all kinds of stuff. Spin is a new system in part 7, and it gets developed later on. It's pretty cool, actually. And Gyro deduces that Poco Loco must have an ability that can't be seen. He has to be doing something, because all these moves that he's doing are impossible.
Yeah. And then they end up getting out of the forest.
So, and they all get out.
So chapter 9 is my first drawing. So talk about your notes for chapter 9 and we'll get about to it.
Poco Loco's ability finally manifests into physical form. This is the first showing of a stand.
Yes.
9 chapters in, which is incredible. It's always shown in the first chapter, the main stands.
Really?
Yeah. it's never shown this late. Almost thought they didn't have any. But we see Hey Ya, the name of this stand.
What do you mean? This is PWFR.
Okay, what's PWFR?
Pokoloco's weird fucking robot.
Awesome.
Because I got a picture of this robot thing looking here, right? 'Cause it looks like a robot and it just gives Pokoloco great luck. So it's PWFR, Pokoloco's weird fucking robot.
Yep. Crap.
Jane, you need to follow your notes better.
I know.
You're bad at this.
Yeah, so basically...
Like, I know I say and right a good amount,
Yeah.
but you're just going,
Right.
Oh, my throat hurts.
Awesome. Anyways, so the stand is able to basically guide the user to good fortune as long as he listens to it. So as long as he listens to what the little devil is speaking in his ear, he'll get all the good luck he wants, basically.
Except it's a big, massive fucking robot.
Yeah. So Gyro takes the lead at the very last minute, coming out of the forest, and it's just mind games. What are they gonna do? What's he gonna do? And
they are all, these four characters, Diego, Gyro, Pokoloco, and Johnny, are all very high. They're faster than everybody else, right? The strategy works for them.
And Sandman is actually able to take the lead by some falling rocks and jumping off of them, and he's able to take paths that horses can't. So that's how he gets his advantage.
Yeah.
He runs wherever he can fit, basically.
And Sandman goes to leap over something, right? And Pokoloco has some weird luck that helps him get over it too.
Yep.
Right? It's very interesting.
Yeah. So chapter 10, we see the Transcontinental Railroad, and we see that the basically Stephen Steele and his group are following the races that goes on. And it explains how Sandman runs.
Yes.
And he's able to do it by some kind of strange proportional bouncing in his feet.
Yeah, pretty much whenever he runs on these surfaces, his heel touches for a second, right? And then he just builds power by launching off of his track there at the bottom, right? And it just builds and complements over time to where he can run fast.
It's very pseudoscience-y. I mean, whether it would actually work or not, who knows?
You're telling me you haven't gone into your backyard and tried to Sandman run yet? Jade, I'm disappointed in you. This is your favorite series of all time. Come on, man.
But anyways.
Like, I've tried to do the things that Nezuko tell me to do, right? Yeah. But I haven't gotten any bitches, so...
Well, Pokoloco's being too lucky, and the finish line is in sight. And who was able to use the Mario gusting ability? It was Gyro on Diego. So Gyro was able to follow right behind Diego, or one or the other.
I realized we skipped the entire part where there was a cow hidden somewhere, because all of this is happening on this really harsh downhill, right? That a bunch of people are expected to wipe out on, right? At some point, Pokoloco gets on his horse, and there's a dead cow, and he surfboards on the dead cow down this thing, right? But then back to where we were, it's like the final 1,000 meters of the race.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost over as our main characters here are getting ready to go into it.
Yeah.
And Diego's just getting ahead with his weird ability. Pokoloco's in the lead constantly, right? It's very interesting.
Yeah, and they're able to use like a Mario Kart gust to use the air pocket to move around.
Yeah, get ahead.
So, chapter 11, the final chapter of these volumes, we have the winds of Santana in Mexico. And what happens...
These winds pretty much give an even greater boost to Gyro.
Yeah. Is, Sandman kicks rocks at Diego to put him off course. And we realize that if Pokoloco says, yo, 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 he can get the luck that he needs.
That's how it works?
I guess.
I didn't notice that at all.
It's a very close race between Johnny, Gyro, Sandman, Pokoloco, and Diego. And
it's very much of a, like, during this last chapter, it's Pokoloco versus Gyro.
Yeah.
Right? They're both trying to get the lead, and then behind them is Johnny and Dio, because Johnny's almost come out of nowhere doing this, right? Nobody even knows Johnny's name, and Johnny is able to pretty much tell everything that Diego is doing.
Yeah, he's like this just surprise runner that nobody saw coming.
No, because everybody thought this guy Mountain Tim, and then this Gyro's the Pelly dude comes forward all of a sudden, right? It's very interesting, right?
So,
and I have to say, the motivation of the characters here and the tension that's built up in this final chapter of this race is really good.
Yeah.
Because there's some massive tension of, oh, who's it going to be? Who's going to win, right? It's very interesting.
Yeah. And Gyro is able to barely pull out the win by doing a pretty sweet technique. He takes his steel balls, spins them underneath this cape that he has, and basically makes like a sail, so the winds behind him can push him faster.
Jeez, is that how that works?
That's how it worked.
I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot during this series.
He made a sale.
Because I don't understand half of what's going on. It isn't said.
That's why you got to read it colored.
I'm not reading it colored.
Well, the problem with Araki's art is sometimes it's too detailed. It's kind of hard to see what's going on.
Oh, have you read One Piece?
Oh, well. But anyways, it ends with it's announcing Gyro has crossed the finish line. And that's where these 2 volumes, I think it ends on a good note.
Yeah. So before we get into the thoughts, there was an 11.5 chapter all about Steven's feel and his backstory.
You want to go into that? Because I didn't have that.
I just thought it was very interesting how his backstory and like this one girl who looked like his wife, and it's just very interesting depth in character that's almost necessary in a way, the way I look at it, right? But so whenever I look at these volumes, the setting I think is brilliant. And this race across America. Of course, I know this derails here in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But it's pretty interesting, right? So, in my opinion, we've got 5 main characters here.
Yeah.
We've got Gyro, we have Johnny, Sandman, Poco Loco, and Diego.
Yep.
I can't stand Gyro.
Okay.
I personally just think that throughout all these volumes, he's just made to be like an overconfident son of a bitch, right? Like, he's like, oh, I know I'm gonna win this since I'm the best, right? I just don't like how his character, he's got this, like, laugh, it's like, nee-ho-ho-ho!
Yeah, no.
Right? I just don't like it, and it's just, I don't really like Johnny, or Gyro as a character. He's just made to be somebody who I just can't enjoy.
I can agree with that.
In these first volumes, at least, right?
Gyro is an asshole. I mean, he is. But I think he grows more likable, and he does get good character development as the series goes on.
Yeah, but, like, right here, I just can't see him as a character that I just look at him like, great, he won the race. I wish Poco Loco would have, or I wish Johnny would have.
Like, from hindsight of reading the whole series, I think Gyro's amazing. But I can also see where you're coming from.
Yeah, like here, I just don't like it.
Because at this point in the story, he's not
done anything.
Yeah.
To be honest, Sandman has this really cool motivation of, I'm going to buy my land back, right? He's got good character motivation that makes you want to follow his story.
And something interesting is that he actually sold, like, a family emerald to get in the race.
Yeah. So, selling something important to get even something more important back.
Yeah. And
right. Which, I mean, from what I can tell, like, of course I don't know, but it seems like these 5 characters or at least 4 of them, right, are going to place high in the end of the race, right? I don't know that, but to me it's what it seems like, and there are prizes that aren't just the 50 million for first, right? There's like $1 million for second.
Yeah, the runner-ups get money as well.
Yeah, so it's not quite just a cut and dry thing. If you don't win, tough luck, right? I like Salmon's whole thing. Poco Loco and his luck is stupidly funny.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a gag, and he does take a bit of a backseat as the race goes on, because he's not necessarily an antagonist, per se. He's just a runner in the race, and he's really good at it.
Yeah, he's not quite like a deuteragonist, since he's not like a main character also.
But I think he's a fun side character.
He's a fun adversary, right? Not a big villain, but still there.
What do you think of Johnny?
Johnny, I really like him. I think his backstory leads into making a good character arc. Like it seems like he'll have a really good character redemption by the end of this.
Yep, he's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite JoJos of all time. Yeah. I think he's really good.
And then Diego, it's just he does weird horse shit.
Yeah, he's kind of a furry. We'll get into that later.
Really, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's just like, all right, here we go. He's here.
I mean,
it's fine.
You gotta
I
remember,
don't really care.
In part 1, Dio's the main villain, and in part 3, Araki loves Dio, so he's gonna bring him back.
Yeah.
And Dio's always just kind of been the asshole.
Is this his same character design?
He looks a little bit different. Like Johnny is a representation of Jonathan Joestar, and they look different, obviously. I mean, really, it's just a rehash of old stuff, but it works, I think.
Yeah.
It creates a new story that's completely separate and different.
I mean, not knowing anything about the JoJo franchise, series, it works so far. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I'm going to have to keep reading this, but it's fine. It's there.
All right.
I mean, I'm not really totally sold on it yet, but I have read further on, and I think it does get a bit more interesting, if not worse.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So do you think these is a strong start to the series? I think this is a very good opening.
I do think so. This whole horse racing stuff, I really hope it takes a back seat in a way. Because whenever I read a series, I imagine, like, Johnny and Gyro just own the old sort of West in a way, just like riding through forests, riding through swamps, riding through the frozen tundra, just on their way to get to the end of this race, right? And whatever hardships come through there, right?
Damn, you spoiled the whole story. This whole story.
What?
You spoiled the whole story.
Is that what it is? Because that's what I want. I want them to ride through every part and show them reach hardships to get to the end.
I mean,
that's what I was waiting for whenever you told me the entire thing. If this is a transcontinental race.
I mean, that's the cool thing.
It's only desert for a little bit, but the rest of the entire continental U.S. is just so much different. So that's what I was wanting whenever I heard of this.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. Because the United States is so freaking big and...
it's got so many environments
and, yeah, ecologically diverse, the author can put his characters whatever situation he wants.
Yeah.
So, some other things I have...
So, if you said I spoiled the series, then I will be looking forward to this, because that is what I wanted.
Okay.
Right? I think this does a good thing to introduce sort of a few characters, but it's fun.
So, alright.
I would give these volumes 7 out of 10.
Yep. I would give them an 8. And my scale's a little harsher than yours, which that means, you know...
But also you have the retrospective looking at the series, like I did for Nisekoi, right? I ranked Nisekoi in what I thought the volumes represented at the time, knowing hindsight that Yui existed. Yeah. And knowing everything that happened at the end, which girl won and all of that, right?
Yep.
So this is a bit of a different experience for me, being that I'm reading this for practically the first time.
Yeah. One complaint I can see is that Spin literally does whatever.
But also, we haven't been explained to this, so I don't really have a problem with it yet, right? Like, I didn't even, third chapter in, I didn't even know what Spin is until you're sort of talking about it now.
It's strange that there were no stands for so long, and even now, there's only Hey Ya. So, I mean, it's very interesting, because no JoJo part ever has done this before. And this is, by now, there would have been some big fight. Some big fight would already happen, whereas this is just,
the main confrontation with the main villain would have already sort of happened in a way.
Another thing I have is that Steven Steele kind of looks like Foo Fighters. I have a drawing here from part 6. They have the same hair, and where it isn't hair, it's just like a cap with spikes on it. It's very strange.
I can't believe that that's not his hair. I thought it was like a bad toupee.
Oh, God. Well, that's all I have for me. I think this is a good start. Oh, one more thing. What do you think of the art style? Because JoJo is a very distinct art style.
It's fine. All of the characters have big lips.
Yeah.
It sort of happens. I mean, I don't... It's fine. Hey, Caleb, what would you rate these volumes? From what you've heard us talk about while you've been asleep back here.
I like it.
That seems to be your answer every time.
Hey, you're just
I thought to say it's amazing series.
Amazing series. Alright, well, unless you got anything else to say, Jaden, I think this is going to be wrapping up our first time looking at JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 7, Steel Ball Run.
Yep, we'll be back with volumes 3 and 4.
I think so. That sounds right.
All right.
And I don't know where those carry to, but we talked about 1 and 2 today, covering chapters 1 through 11.
All right, see you guys.
We'll see y'all next time. This is Glowplasma 231 out.